My name is Jason Velasco with the eDiscovery advisory team, as you can see by the big world view that we have here. This is our episode of Out of Curiosity, because I love to share some of the things that I love to learn about and I am curious about. So we're going to learn a little bit more and share some information. So I'd like to introduce you to one of my oldest friends in the eDiscovery space, Cash Butler. Hi, Cash. How you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us. Where are you joining us from? You are in like the sunny tundra of Michigan, right?
Yes, Ann Arbor, Michigan. I just got done shoveling about 4 inches of snow this morning.
That does not sound appealing at all. You know, I grew up in Chicago as well myself, and I shoveled a lot. You know what? I don't want to do it anymore.
I prefer it to be an outsourced activity myself.
Well, thank you for joining us. And you know, you and I have chatted and known each other for a pretty long time. So why don't you introduce a little bit about yourself and tell our audience about who you are and what you're doing now.
Sure. I mean, how far do you want me to go back?
Well, I'm probably going to kick back a little bit later on our Lextranet Merrill days. So, but
Okay.
why don't you just tell us about what you're doing now and kind of who you are and what you do and why you do it.
Sure, sure. So I'm Cash Butler. I'm a veteran of electronic discovery, particularly from a electronic discovery vendor perspective. I've worked at a couple of early stage companies, Steel Point Technology, Lextranet, which were sold to larger companies over the years. Lots of experience. Through that experience, I found that the procurement process is broken. So I founded a company focused on procurement of legal services called ClariLegal. And it's proven to work quite well.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit. So let's start. You know, as I mentioned, we talked. That you and I have gone back pretty far. So I think I met you when I was working at Merrill Legal Services. I just started, and you were part of the Lextranet team, correct? So
Yeah,
for those that remember Lextranet, which a great tool for the time, man, I tell you.
it's still going a little bit.
Well, that's good. So I guess you had mentioned that you went from Steel Point. So tell me how you got from Steel Point to Lextranet, which was a kind of an interesting approach because they were a plaintiff tool for the most part.
Yeah. So I got recruited to Steel Point when I was in grad school. I came out of the banking industry and technology industry. And, they were one of the first sort of electronic discovery tools out there. Their product was called Introspect. Well, Xantaz purchased Steel Point Technology. And so there was a lot of combination, duplication of roles.
Mhm.
So I actually got recruited to go to Lextranet, which was maybe a mile away, if that. I went from basically the Charles River to the Union Wharf Ocean.
That's
Uh,
Boston, right? Boston.
Boston, that's right, Boston. And as an operating partner to help them, shore up some operational things. And it turns out, get them, sort of ready to exit, which that's where you and I met when Merrill purchased uh, Lextranet.
And so what were you doing for them?
Oh, so I wore many hats at Lextranet. I was product managing, operations managing, sales engineer. It was quite a interesting couple of hats that I wore. I'm a business person. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a operations expert and business person, by training and experience. So that's basically what I did.
So I know that once Lextranet got acquired through Merrill and all those type of things, you kind of forged out on your own. So, and that's what you kind of led to ClariLegal. So, tell me a little bit about how you actually got, and from being an entrepreneur myself, how did you kind of regroup and take those entrepreneurial roots and take them to building and developing a technology?
Sure. So I have always looked for process gaps in my career, whether they're internal, external. um, even interdepartmental, and tried to have better processes, business processes. And then I also like to use technology to enable those processes to do better, faster, cheaper. Well, it became abundantly clear through my experience at SteelPoint and Xantaz and Lextranet and Merrill that the procurement process was broken. Particularly, starting at the RFP. Um, I knew, having filled out hundreds of RFPs over the years, that it was a real pain in the neck. Sometimes you'd get 200 pages of questions of, 50% or more may not even be relevant to the type of work that you were doing. And then when I had some people on the buy side, the law firm side, and the corporate side saying, "Geez, I can't make heads or tails. I can't compare these proposals."
Right.
And that's when the light bulb sort of went off. And I'm entrepreneurial by nature, and I said, "Geez, I got stuff to fix." So I left Merrill and started ClariLegal to fix the
So
RFP and procurement process.
so tell me about that because I mean, I've done on both sides, both responding to RFPs and answering those 200 questions, and quite candidly, I've been one of those people on the other side, on the at the corporate level, filling out, especially around the compliance archiving stuff. And I mean, those are pretty dense. So I mean, how are you like? I guess what are you doing with all of those RFPs, and how do you centralize that for a client?
So, well, the first thing we did, we have to be a neutral third party.
Okay.
No one wants anyone else's paper. So if we're going to set standards and things like that, we, we needed to be neutral. That's why ClariLegal exists. Um, then we've found a way to embed service offerings of vetted vendors into our software. So instead of a 2 week, sometimes 2 month um, RFP back and forth, red line here, red line there, we can execute the fastest we've executed an electronic discovery job is 2.5 hours, not 2.5 months, not 2.5 weeks, 2.5 hours through the embedding of the RFPs within our software. And then when having the buy side scope the work out when they submit it.
Right.
And then it's just a matter of putting in line item pricing, and your RFP, which you update periodically, comes with it.
Hold on, let me make sure I understand. So basically, what you have clients,
Right.
corporations, law, whatever they are.
Yep.
You basically give them a system, and then they put in like the scoping. I've got 100 gigs of data. It needs to go in relativity, and I need it done this time frame. It's an HSR, whatever that may be.
Yep.
And then you basically put it in your system, and then what happens?
It goes out to n number of vendors that have the skills, capability, and scope to do this work, all vetted,
Mhm.
peer vetted, and also vetted by us. And they bid on that work. And it usually comes back within, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And then you compare because we're structuring the RFP and the responses to the RFP. So you can do an apples to apples comparison and understand here's the best value for the work.
So is that
For
really
this
designed for like a, and I want to get into the vetting thing. So is that really designed for, okay, I've got one case every couple of years and I'm looking to vet it out, or are people doing this like if I'm a corporation, I want consistency in terms of what, my data process specs and all that other stuff. So is that different from a law firm, which is usually that may be willing to look at pricing, compare and look at more providers? What are you seeing in the marketplace?
well, what they want is competition, and they do want consistency, both the corporations and the law firms. What they want to do is reduce the administrative burden of having to do an RFP for every project.
Awesome.
Well, if you if it takes you 15 minutes to do an RFP or 2 hours to do an RFP of your own personal labor or group labor, you can put it out to a select group of your own vetted vendors, so your panel, if you will. You could put it out and hire it by project. You could hire it by year, as a managed services agreement. Um, it's really flexible in the way we can work with any buy side client. It's fast, it's efficient, which by the way were by far the most important qualities that and benefits that people are looking for. How can you save me time? How can you save my group time? How can you save the corporation's time? So it's a reduction of administrative burden. Plus, we reduce costs. We're a lower cost sales channel. Therefore,
So,
with real vetted work.
and you're measuring that with them, right? You can do a comparison and show them an ROI, I assume.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Um, we show them ROI on a number of things, on the time they saved. We've had one company come to us and say, I have 40 people in my procurement department. Using this tool, I may only need 4 or 5 people in the procurement department, which allows me to free up those resources to do more value added work as opposed to sort of legwork, if you will, administrative legwork.
So you mentioned vetting, and I'm very curious about that because I mean, much like yourself, I mean, the eDiscovery Advisory Group, we're completely provider and technology agnostic, right? So we work with everybody, or when we don't really have an opinion, we'll work with and it's necessary. But we spend a lot of time digging into what the capabilities are, what their functionality are, what their project management expertise, their global reach, and we look at all those type of things from a provider perspective. How are you vetting a client? So if I'm a law firm, I know that this is someone or this organization that's putting this bid out that I'm going to sign paper with is actually going to do the job and be there and manage my data with quality and privacy and all that other stuff. Security.
Somewhat similarly, I mean, we certainly get uh, testimonials from customers. Um, Interestingly enough, sometimes those come back not so good. Um, we also look at the software, and particularly with electronic discovery, we've been doing this a long time. We're pretty expert. We know what can and cannot be done. We understand the. We don't go into the real nitty, edge condition of the software. We go, can this do the work? Can it do it well? Do the customers who use this like it? And not just the software, but the people. People are challenging to measure. Well, we can measure. We measure each engagement. Um,
What's called like an
so
ABC score? Do you rank it 0 to 10? You
0 to 5,
thumbs up, thumbs down.
0 to 5. So we have the service offering embedded in the software. So if someone says they can process a terabyte of data in 15 minutes, we can measure it. So it's both subjective and objective information that we compile a rating. And then for every project, um, we not only do there's a survey, and um, it's not meant to be nasty grams. It's meant to be helpful improvement to. So we have these surveys that they're about 8 questions, quick questions, about responsiveness, project management, how do you communicate, change management, how do you handle crisis, things like that. And we compile that information on both the buyer and the seller. So we're democratizing it. And combining those two subjective and objective things, we come up with are you 1 to 5? And lots of times we'll end up consulting with people, um, or organizations to maybe help them get better at scoping the work, so when they send it out they'll get better results. Or maybe there's a service provider out there that's really really good at 3 or 4 things but has a weakness in a particular area. I mean, I would have killed for this at Merrill or any of the Lextranet, Xantas. Tell me what I need to improve. How can I win more business? Don't tell me what I'm good at. I already, that's not where I should be applying my precious resources. I should be fixing things. So, it turns into a real nice, virtuous feedback loop.
So, I mean, I guess, let's switch past eDiscovery for a second. I mean, it sounds like you can actually use this in lots of different areas. And are you considering like moving this into like a different area where like more of a procurement model, governmental, or I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of functionality
Oh,
that's just discovery.
yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. We have been um, through inbound demand. We have been contacted by federal government, state government, local government for other vertical markets like uh, commercial real estate, software development. Um, it's quite a list of things. Hey, can you make our procurement process and RFP process more efficient and effective, and less costly? Human labor cost plus getting a better value.
Mhm.
And so we do have plans. It's not going to be in ClariLegal because we can't. ClariLegal may become a product of a larger entity that can service multiple markets. We can't very well call ClariLegal for, I don't know, the Department of Homeland Security,
Uh,
whatever it may be.
Ah, okay, well, that's interesting. Well, thanks for sharing that. So I want to try something new out. This is something I've been playing around with. So you know this well about me. I'm a pretty big nerd. And in the post Mandalorian world, I've now been actually now watching the Clone War animated series. And one of the things that I discovered about it is that in the beginning they have some really cool quotes in the beginning that kind of gives me, and it's great. I mean, they're great philosophical quotes, and what I'm calling this is the Clone War quote of the day, right? So I'm gonna throw this out there, and I want to know what this means to you and how it's applied to you. So let's try this, all right? So
Yeah.
here's my Clone War quote of the day. Great leaders inspire greatness in others. Great leaders inspire greatness in others. So give me an example of either where you've been a leader or where a great leader has inspired you, present company excluded.
Well, a great leader probably takes people to places that they may not go on their own. They may, but they have a level of comfort that they're going to be okay. Um, from my various ports of call, I've had a number of people follow me from company to company because they trust that I'm making good decisions and that I have their best interests at heart. Um, but at the end of the day, so there's a couple of ways to incent for the proper behavior. Certainly, the financial is one, and that's a big one. But it's how you treat people. It's how you treat people, how you, uh, encourage growth in your team. And an old boss of mine used to tell me this. When I eventually became his boss at a bank, um, because the best compliment I ever got was that you did a real good job training Cash up, and now he's your boss.
Okay.
And it it resonated with me because in the as you have experienced too, I look around the e-discovery landscape and I see lots of people who I've helped along their path that have done some pretty tremendous things. And that I think is, if you've been helpful to those folks to help them get to where they need to go, I take that as a super duper compliment and a
Yeah.
super. I pat myself on the back for that. How's that?
And you should. I mean, and that's always been I remember an experience of mine where I remember I was coming back from a legal tech, and I was still living in Austin at the time. And this is after Renew Data, and this may be about 6 or 7 years afterwards. And I remember I was sitting into closer in the front of the plane, and I looked back and I saw no less than 11 people,
Yeah.
6 different companies, and different levels of resources of people that I've have either worked with, developed, mentored, been mentored by on that airplane back to Austin. And to me that was just, I mean, it was one of those what I call a kind of proud papa moments. And
Yeah.
and and it made me feel inspired to continue to be a leader and mentor and help other things as well. So
No,
yeah, thanks for sharing that, Cash. I
it's
appreciate
funny
that.
you mentioned legal tech. The thing I get the best uh, kick out of legal tech is running into peers, current, past peers, and just connecting with them and seeing. It's a little bit of the night before Thanksgiving at a local bar, where you get together after every
Names,
year and say, "Hey, how
names,
you doing?"
names.
um,
I actually
so
walked by there the other day because it was the day after New Year's, and I walked by the Hilton and it's boarded up, which is sad because
yeah,
for those Hilton's closed. But I walked past Face's name and that was all boarded up as well. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do next year. I mean, I might just have to go wander around there the first week of February just to kind of just get feel like I've visited the Warwick and visited the London and all those other places. So
I'm sure we can come up with something, Jason.
all right,
'Cause
sounds good.
I'll be
Well, I have a
doing the same.
because I mean this falls in because you are a phenomenal networker. You know people, you connect people and all those type of things. Tell me a little bit about your approach around networking and how you commit to it and how much time you spend doing networking.
Well, I have a little bit of an internal advantage. I like people. I'm a social person. I like people. I like interesting people. I, and I'm interested in what they're doing. So I listen and I remember things about them, and what they like to do, and all those good things. So that's sort of a little. I get that. That's a hereditary thing I got from my mom. Um, the and it's nice to there's a karma thing going on. If you introduce person A to person B and something good happens, sooner or later something comes around and you get some value from that, seemingly innocent connection. um I mean, frankly, one of the things on the matching part of what we do at ClariLegal, people have actually said, you've automated cash. um I go, "Oh, well, what do you mean? I'm not a robot." They go, "Well, you connect people. You're always matching value to value. It doesn't have to be in e-discovery. It could be in going to a game. It could be in, someone moving to a new city and wanting to meet some people that I may know. It could be, um, it's just, it's interesting things. It could be help someone with, finding a role. Um, and there's and it makes me feel good to help people.
Yeah, that's good. And you've always been a great kind of networker and mentor for me over the last 15ish years or so since we've known each other. So I mean, I appreciate all that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've learned quite a bit from you over the years too, my friend. So it's not a one-way mentorship.
So one last thing I'm curious about because this is all about being out of curiosity here. So you and I at one of the legal techs at a bar, I'm sure you had mentioned something about a hockey career of some sort.
Oh, yeah,
Tell
I
me
used to play hockey.
I mean, because I'm sure there was like 3 drinks in. I'm sure. So tell me a little bit about your hockey career and what your background is around that. Being an athlete.
So, um, so I played pretty competitively in a couple of sports. Early on it was swimming and diving and hockey, uh, football, baseball. I played hockey, certainly throughout high school and some college. Um, I had a lot of fun. I played with a lot of great people, interesting people, a lot of professional athletes. I have a reasonable sized network of, football players, hockey players, baseball players that I, you know a little bit through playing sports. Um, which, it's growing up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's sort of, I got a touch of, oh, what was the movie with Tom Hanks? Forrest Gump. There's a little Forrest Gump in me where just through your everyday, my baseball coach when I was in second grade was Bill Freehan, who was a Hall of Fame catcher for the Tigers, and he played at the University of Michigan. So just stumbling through life, I've met a lot of people. I had no idea that other people found these folks pretty interesting. I mean, I was uh, introduced to Ted Turner when I was 14, um, as a example of a student athlete playing hockey. He was going to invest in this hockey league. Ann Arbor Amateur Hockey Association, and they brought me to a restaurant, which is no longer there. But here I am with Ted Turner, Mike Adre, and Tom Eamon, and there's 14-year-old Cash. Next thing you know, they're sliding me beers and corrupting this student athlete by eating. My mom was mad. That said, Tom Eamon went on to run America's Cup, the sailing thing. Everyone knows who Ted Turner is. It was natural. You go sit down at a restaurant in Ann Arbor, you run into a football coach. I met Mikhail Baryshnikov at the same restaurant, and Muhammad Ali 2 weeks apart.
Wow. I
It's
think
just a weird place.
Yeah, I mean this goes back to our Clone Wars quote of the day, right? Which is, great leaders inspire greatness in others. I mean, just touching a little bit of greatness
Oh,
really allows you to just want to be better, be a better person.
well, full disclosure, I did not know who Mikhail Baryshnikov was. My girlfriend did, and at the time, and she forced me to, because I'm not very shy, as you know, to go over and introduce myself and her to him, and I found out he was a pretty good dancer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, was this after or before White Knights? Probably before. White, yeah.
Well, before I probably around the same. I would say it's in the early '80s.
Yeah. Well, yeah, White Knights was like 86, 87 ish, I think.
Well, probably a little bit before then. Um,
All right. Well, you're old, and
right.
with
That's what I
that
tell people.
with that said, Cash, thank you. How can people get a hold of you?
Oh, either through ClariLegal or cash at ClariLegal, ClariLegal.com. So cash at ClariLegal.com. Certainly through LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I think it's a great business tool and a way to keep touch with people. And out of curiosity, let me ask you two questions
Sure. Go ahead.
that have been. What do you think of between these two terms that the legal business of legal is in? Are we an evolutionary period or an innovative period?
Neither. Um,
um,
it's interesting you say that because I mean, I, I was lucky to be part of the evolutionary period, right, where we went from
mhm,
computer forensics to e-discoveries, and I was pretty heavily involved in that part in my career. Um, Innovation is kind of hard because innovation to me is completely out of the box thinking, and right now people are associating innovation with using machine learning and AI. And I'm not there yet because that's not completely out of the box yet.
yeah,
For me, innovation, I'm starting to see some innovation as people are starting to really dig into technologies that are, preservation in place, being able to do e-discovery without having to go through the traditional workflow, integrations with M365 and Google Workspace.
yep.
That's where the opportunity for innovation is yet. And people are getting there. Um, I'm not seeing a lot of productization of that yet because people still fall back on the traditional e-discovery process.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good answer. The one of the things I would say is innovation is well before evolution. Anytime you can apply a technology to a process,
Okay.
whether it's legal hold or whatnot, that's an evolutionary step. My second one, um, is change problematic or is it an opportunity?
Opportunity. I love
There you
change.
go.
Oh,
That's it.
that's not even a nanosecond answer that one.
That's right.
And one of the things that I've always discovered around what implementing e-discovery programs and IG programs and just working with people, no matter what we do is change management. And it's
Yeah.
not technology, it's change management. We're getting people to do behavioral things that are different from what they do ordinarily using workflows, technologies, resourcing, educational tools, and things along those lines. So for me, I look for change. I embrace change. One of my Clifton strengths is adaptability. So I flourish in a change environment. So, yeah, I mean, I love change.
Yeah, I'm with you 110%. I get frustrated when people don't change. The cognitive dissonances, plural, that people have regarding, even though they know it's good and would help them and help their company, they still don't do it. I don't know if it's laziness or security or, I'm sure it's a combination of things. But generally speaking, folks with the entrepreneurial spirit like you and I have, we look at this as opportunity left and right. And I mean, even in this terrible, terrible COVID-19, negative impact, there's opportunity everywhere um, for people to come up with new ways to do business with conference calls, with remote work, with, just all kinds of things. So, you know, folks like you and I, we realize, understand, and respect this impact. That said, we also look for ways to evolve and to be productive or helpful in this environment. It's a different mindset.
Yeah, and again, I'll throw my 30-second pitch out there in terms of some of the things that we're doing to innovate. I've been focused heavily on M365, right, in terms of
Yeah.
using the discovery piece and really trying to figure out innovative ways to help businesses use this technology that they're paying for to help save them costs, right? I just worked with one client, and I think we had almost a 300% ROI in year one by using some automation
Uh,
techniques M365. So it's like, I get it, right? And that's what so
so, Jason, I would say evolution. You're taking a technology and you're taking them from the square wheel to the round wheel to the hover board.
right now I just got a wheelbarrow, baby. I'm just trying to move it from one side. Well, Cash, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and everyone, thank you for joining us for this version of that this. Sorry, let's repeat that again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode of Out of Curiosity. Cash, it's great always having a good conversation with you. You've answered a lot of my interesting questions that I had burning in my head for you. And by all means, I'm looking forward. Please reach out to Cash if you guys have any questions around, trying to figure out innovative and evolutionary ways of trying to deal with your procurement and selecting technology. Pretty interesting stuff.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Jason. This has been a bright spot of my week.
That's good. Great. Thank you, Cash. Happy New Year to you.
All right. You too.
Bye bye.